Hello, friends, and welcome to the Easy Peasy Music Theory course for kids. I'm Miss Christine, and I have another lesson in store for you. So if you would like, grab a pencil, grab a notebook, or just come ready to learn. Let's get started. Welcome to lesson number 8, the bass clef. So we're going to learn a new clef today. So let's get to it. All right. Now, before I talk about the bass clef, you're looking right here at a treble clef, right? And I told you we were going to talk about the bass clef. So what is going on? Well, I forgot to mention, why do we call this clef, the treble clef, the G clef? Remember, it has two names? Yes. Well, the reason why we call the treble clef the G clef is because, as you can see, this curls around the second line. And you should know from the line notes in the treble clef that the second line is the G line, and the treble clef circles around the G line, and so that is why we call it the G clef. Do you remember what a clef is? You should remember. A clef is a cymbal that is placed on the staff, the left side of the staff. It tells us which notes to play or sing, right? And it also sits on the left-hand side of the staff. So you remember from the treble clef, any clef that we're talking about, that is what you'll notice. It's going to be on the left side, and it tells us what notes to play or sing. And as you remember, we talked about the treble clef, and we mentioned the bass clef, the alto clef, and the tenor, but today's lesson, we will focus on the bass clef. That's right. And by its name, you probably already can figure out that it's going to play very low notes. All right, now look at the bass clef. Doesn't it look wonderful? It kind of looks almost like a half of a heart, right? If we were to put another heart here, you might say, oh boy, it kind of looks like a half of a heart. But this is our bass clef. All right, now let's learn some more about this bass clef, or the F clef. And I'll talk about why we call the bass clef the F clef soon enough. But what is the bass clef? Well, the bass clef is a music symbol that tells the music that it will be written for low sounding instruments. Well, what kind of low sounding instruments? Well, you have the bass guitar, bass fiddle, bass clarinet, tuba, and some others. Well, what other instruments? Well, believe it or not, the piano plays the bass clef, and guess what? That G clef that we just talked about. So the piano plays two clefs, but our bass clef, you betcha, is for those low instruments. All right, so now let's learn how to draw the bass clef, right? It's nice to talk about it, but let's draw the bass clef. All right, so we have our music staff here, and as you remember, we count from the bottom up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're dealing with the fourth line, and we want to put a nice circle or a dot here, fill it in, okay? And then you want to take your pencil and give like a half circle or a backwards C, and then just come right below the second line. And don't forget your two dots. Okay, and let's do it again. Take your pencil, fill in a small circle on the fourth line, take your pencil and go right above the fifth line, coming down all the way to the second line, and you want a nice little curve, okay? And then put your other dot right here in this fourth space, and the next dot in the third space. Okay, and that's our bass clef. Do the best you can. We'll do one more. Take your pencil, fill in your circle, take your line, and go right below that fifth line and bring it down, and right below the second line, and fill in your dot on the fourth space and the next dot on the third space. All right, and I want you to practice, practice, practice. All right, so what did we learn today? Well, you learned all about the bass clef and how to draw the bass clef on the staff. You already know that the bass clef is for low-sounding instruments. What kind of low-sounding instruments? The bass guitar, bass fiddle, bass clarinet, and what was that instrument that plays both clefs, bass clef and treble clef? That's right, the piano. So I want you to practice and get ready for your homework. So what's for homework? Oh, you betcha. I want you to practice drawing your bass clefs. All right, so here we have our dots, and you're to just trace and follow the line, follow the dots, trace, and create your own bass clefs, okay? And once you feel that you have a good idea, then you can come down here and draw your very own bass clefs. And this will help you become a better musician. I'll see you in the next lesson.